Lucky American coins. The 1962 United States 1-cent coin is one of those old Lincoln Memorial pennies that can look ordinary at first glance, but can become much more interesting when its condition, mint mark, die variety, or genuine mint era is examined closely. A normal 1962 Lincoln cent is not a $251 million coin, and there's no reliable auction or grading evidence showing an ordinary 1962 penny selling for $251 million. However, unusual mint errors, spectacular wrong planchet pieces, extremely high-grade examples, and rare varieties can be worth substantially more than face value. For anyone searching through an old collection, inherited coin jar, bank roll, or group of family coins, the 1962 cent is worth examining carefully because a genuine error can transform an otherwise common 1-cent coin into a collectible. The standard 1962 Philadelphia Lincoln cent has no mint mark. It was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, with a reported mintage of 606,045,000 pieces. The coin has a diameter of approximately 19 millimeters and a standard weight of about 3.11 grams. It is a copper alloy cent, and its edge is plain rather than reeded. PCGS identifies the standard composition as 95% copper and 5% zinc, while NGC describes the composition in its catalog as brass for copper alloy terminology. The 1962 D Lincoln cent was produced at the Denver Mint and is identified by the small letter D below the date on the obverse. Denver struck approximately 1,793,148,400 Lincoln cents dated 1962, making the 1962 D considerably more common in absolute numbers than the Philadelphia issue. It also has a standard weight of approximately 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters. The basic denomination is 1 cent, written as 1 cent on the reverse. The coin belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series that began in 1959. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln appears on the obverse, while Frank Gasparo designed the memorial reverse. The 1962 cent therefore carries two important pieces of American numismatic history, Brenner's Lincoln portrait and Gasparo's Lincoln memorial design. On the front of the coin, Abraham Lincoln faces right. Above Lincoln's portrait appears the national motto "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln's portrait is Liberty, and the date 1962 appears on the lower right side. If the coin was struck at Denver, a small D mint mark appears beneath the date. A Philadelphia 1962 cent has no mint mark. The location and appearance of the mint mark are important because collectors often compare Philadelphia and Denver pieces when searching for varieties and errors. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Above the building is United States of America. The denomination 1 cent appears along the lower portion of the coin, and the motto E pluribus unum appears above the memorial. The memorial itself is especially interesting because the tiny seated figure of Lincoln can sometimes be seen by collectors using magnification. The design was introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The 1962 cent was struck during an important period in United States history. It was produced during the early 1960s, when the United States Mint was still making cents from a traditional copper alloy. These coins circulated heavily, and millions passed through cash registers, vending machines, banks, stores, pockets, and household containers. Because so many survived, the ordinary circulated 1962 cent is generally not rare. Its collectible value usually depends on something that separates it from the enormous number of ordinary examples. That difference may be condition, color, mint mark, die variety, proof status, or an actual mint error. This distinction is extremely important. A coin can be old without being rare, and a coin can have an unusual appearance without having a valuable mint error. The word error is particularly important when discussing a 1962 Lincoln cent. A genuine mint error is something that happened during the manufacturing process at the United States Mint. It can involve a wrong planchette, a striking problem, a dramatic off-center strike, a brokerage, a clipped planchette, a double design caused by a die issue, or another documented production anomaly. By contrast, scratches, corrosion, cleaning, environmental damage, discoloration, dents, machine damage, and post-mint alterations are not normally considered valuable mint errors. This distinction can make an enormous difference in value. A 1962 cent with a normal appearance and ordinary circulation may be worth only around face value in many circumstances. Professional price guides show that common examples can remain inexpensive, while attractive uncirculated coins can bring higher prices. NGC's published data for the 1962 Philadelphia cent shows low values across circulated grades and progressively higher figures for high-grade uncirculated pieces. PCGS auction information demonstrates how dramatically condition can change the value of an otherwise common date. A 1962 Philadelphia cent in an exceptional red uncirculated grade has reached thousands of dollars at auction. PCGS lists an auction record of $8,812.50 for a 1962 cent, while its Coinfax page identifies an $8,813 auction record for a 1962 MS67 Plus example. That is a real, documented level of value that is far more useful to collectors than an unsupported claim of a $251 million market value. The 1962D can also be surprisingly valuable in exceptional condition. PCGS records a $12,000 auction result for a 1962D Lincoln cent graded MS67, which demonstrates that a common date coin can become a significant collectible when it survives in extraordinary condition. For this reason, if someone has a 1962 penny that appears unusually bright, sharp, original, and free of significant marks, it should not automatically be dismissed simply because the date is common. High-grade copper coins are difficult to preserve. Small scratches, carbon spots, staining, discoloration, weak strikes, and contact marks can prevent a coin from reaching the highest grades. The color designation is also important. Collectors commonly encounter the terms BN, RB, and road. BN means brown, RB means red-brown, and road means red. A copper cent that has retained much of its original red color can be considerably more desirable than a heavily brown example of the same grade. PCGS separates the 1962 cent into brown, red-brown, and red categories and maintains separate auction and population information for these classifications. The condition of a 1962 penny should therefore be evaluated before deciding that it is ordinary. A coin that has been cleaned can actually be worth less than an untouched coin because collectors generally prefer original surfaces. A shiny appearance does not necessarily mean a high grade. Many old copper coins have been polished, buffed, chemically treated, or exposed to substances that create artificial brightness. One of the most interesting areas for a 1962 cent collector is error collecting. A genuine error can be worth significantly more than a normal coin, depending on its rarity, visual impact, authenticity, grade, and collector demand. One type of error that attracts particular attention is a wrong planchette error. This occurs when a coin is struck on a planchette intended for another denomination, or an incorrect metal composition. A spectacular example associated with the 1962 date is a cent struck on a dime planchette. Such a piece can have an unusual silver-colored appearance, a different weight, and remnants of the design associated with the other denomination. A documented 1962 cent struck on a Roosevelt Dime planchette has been reported as weighing approximately 2.5 grams instead of the normal 3.11 grams for a cent. One such 1962 Philadelphia cent on dime planchette error-graded NGC MS65 reportedly sold for $3,818.75 at heritage auctions in 2012. That type of error is vastly more interesting than a normal 1962 cent with ordinary wear. The reason is simple: the wrong planchette error happened because the wrong blank entered the production process, creating a coin that should not exist under normal minting procedures. A collector examining a possible wrong planchette 1962 cent should never rely only on color. A normal copper cent can become silver, gray, dark brown, or nearly black through environmental exposure, chemical treatment, cleaning, or oxidation. The weight, diameter, thickness, design characteristics, and professional authentication all matter. A standard 1962 cent should weigh around 3.11 grams. A significant departure from that weight can justify closer examination, but weight alone does not prove an error. Dirt, corrosion, damage, missing material, plating, or a scale with poor accuracy can affect a reading. A proper digital scale accurate to at least 0.01 gram is useful for preliminary screening. Another area collectors examine is double dies. A double die occurs when a die itself contains duplicated portions of the design because of a die-making process error. This is different from mechanical doubling, which can appear as a flat, shelf-like secondary impression caused during striking. Genuine double dies can be collectible, but not every apparent doubling is valuable. The most important places to inspect include the date, Liberty, In God We Trust, the mint mark when present, and details on the reverse. Strong, rounded, separated secondary design elements are generally more interesting than flat, shelf-like distortions. The 1962 proof cent is another variety worth knowing. PCGS records a 1962 proof mintage of 3,218,019 pieces. Proof coins were specially manufactured for collectors and typically have sharper details and specially prepared surfaces compared with ordinary circulation strikes. PCGS also catalogues double die varieties among the 1962 proof cents, including FS 801 varieties. A proof coin should not automatically be called an error. Proof is a production format, not an error. A proof coin can, however, also have a die variety or genuine mint error. The 1962 D cent has another area of interest: repunched mint marks. During the period, mint marks were applied to working dies separately, and varieties can occur when a mint mark was punched more than once in different positions. Modern collectors can examine the D for evidence of an additional impression. Published collecting references identify 1962 D repunched mint mark varieties, and examples with strong visible doubling can be more desirable. A collector looking for repunched mint mark should use magnification. The supposed second D should appear as a genuine secondary impression rather than a scratch or damage. Because the mint mark is small, photographs taken under different lighting angles can be helpful. Another famous Lincoln cent variety is the so-called BIE phenomenon. On some Lincoln cents, a die crack between the B and E of Liberty can create a raised vertical line that resembles an additional letter I. Collectors sometimes call these BIE cents. This can be an interesting die variety, although not every BIE style mark is highly valuable. The size, strength, location, authenticity, grade, and collector interest all influence value. The important lesson is that the word error should not be used simply because something looks strange. An authentic error should be examined in the context of how coins are actually manufactured. For someone holding a 1962 penny, the first step is to identify whether there is a mint mark. If there is no D beneath the date, it is generally a Philadelphia issue. If a D is visible, it is a Denver issue. If the coin has proof characteristics and came from a proof set, it may be a proof coin. The next step is weighing the coin. A standard cent should be close to 3.11 grams. If the coin is substantially lighter or heavier, that does not guarantee an error, but it can be a reason to investigate further. The next step is examining the diameter and thickness. A standard cent is approximately 19 millimeters in diameter. Then examine the edge. The normal edge is plain. Look for unusual seams, flattening, missing portions, laminations, or other features that could indicate a genuine production issue. After that, inspect the obverse. Look closely at 1962, Liberty, In God We Trust, Lincoln's portrait, and the area around the rim. Check for doubling, die cracks, cuds, missing details, unusual lettering, or an off-center strike. Then inspect the reverse. Examine United States of America, E pluribus unum, 1 cent, the memorial building, and the rim. An off-center strike can be especially obvious on the reverse if part of the design is missing. Off-center errors happen when the planchette is not correctly positioned between the dies during striking. The amount of missing design and the percentage of off-center striking can influence collector interest. A dramatic off-center error, with the date still visible, can be particularly desirable because the coin can be identified easily. A clipped planchette is another type of mint error. This happens when the blanking press cuts a portion of the planchette incorrectly. The result can be a curved missing section. Authentic clips often show characteristics of metal flow around the affected area. A random-looking chip, or post-mint damage, should not automatically be called a clipped planchette. Brokerage errors can be even more dramatic. A brokerage can occur when a previously struck coin adheres to a die and then impresses its design into another blank. The resulting coin may have an incuse or mirrored impression that does not belong on the normal side of the coin. Genuine brockages can be highly collectible. A major error such as a wrong planchette, dramatic brokerage, substantial off-center strike, or major die break can be worth much more than a minor die variety. But the value is never determined simply by calling something an error. Authentication is critical. The Internet contains many exaggerated claims about old pennies. A headline may state that a particular penny is worth hundreds of thousands, millions, or hundreds of millions of dollars. Such claims are often based on hypothetical values, unsold listings, social media posts, automated articles, or confusion between asking prices and actual auction results. A seller can list a coin for $251 million, but that does not mean the coin is worth $251 million. An actual market value is much better supported by documented transactions, recognized auction houses, professional grading records, and comparable sales. For the 1962 Lincoln cent, available professional records do not support a normal market value of $251 million. The strongest documented examples located in established numismatic sources are thousands of dollars, not hundreds of millions. PCGS reports a $8,812.50 auction record for the 1962 Philadelphia issue, and a $12,000 auction record for the 1962 D. This does not mean an unusual 1962 error can never be valuable. It means the claimed $251 million figure should not be presented as a confirmed current market value without credible evidence of an actual sale at that amount. For a YouTube coin video, a safer and more accurate approach is to describe $251 million as a sensational claim or hypothetical headline rather than a confirmed sale price. This protects the credibility of the content and gives viewers useful information about how coin values are actually determined. The 1962 cent is historically interesting because it belongs to the early Lincoln Memorial era. The Memorial reverse had only recently replaced the wheat reverse. The first Lincoln cents with the Memorial reverse were dated 1959, and the design remained in production for decades. The Lincoln Memorial itself was dedicated in Washington, D.C., in 1922, and its appearance on the cent connected a major American monument with one of the country's most recognizable presidents. The coin therefore represents not only a denomination, but also a piece of American commemorative symbolism. The obverse portrait of Lincoln was based on Victor David Brenner's famous design. Brenner's portrait had already been used on Lincoln cents since 1909. By 1962, the design had become deeply established in American currency. The symbols on the coin also carry meaning. Liberty represents the national ideal of freedom. "In God We Trust" is the official national motto appearing on the coin. E pluribus unum translates approximately to "out of many, one," reflecting the concept of the United States as a union of states and people. United States of America identifies the issuing nation, while 1 cent identifies the denomination. The date 1962 is especially important for identification. If the date is damaged, partially missing, or altered, authentication can become more difficult. If the coin is suspected to be an error, the original date should be preserved and the coin should not be cleaned. Cleaning is one of the biggest mistakes a beginning collector can make. Someone may find an old 1962 cent and think it looks dirty, so they polish it with a cloth, chemical cleaner, metal polish, vinegar, baking soda, or another substance. That can permanently alter the surface. Collectors and grading services can often detect cleaning, and an improperly cleaned coin can lose substantial collector appeal. The safest approach is to leave the coin as found. Handle it by the edges and avoid rubbing the surfaces. If professional evaluation is necessary, place it in a protective holder rather than a loose pocket. The coin's weight is also an important clue. The standard 1962 cent is approximately 3.11 grams. Suppose someone finds a 1962 penny that weighs 2.50 grams. That would immediately deserve further examination, because it is significantly below the normal 3.11 gram specification. A documented cent-on-dime planchet example from 1962 has been reported around 2.5 grams, demonstrating why unusual weight can sometimes be an important clue. But the opposite warning is equally important: never conclude that every 2.5 gram 1962 penny is a dime planchet error. A coin can lose metal through damage, corrosion, filing, or other causes. Professional examination is needed before assigning a major value. The metal itself can provide another clue. A normal 1962 cent has a copper alloy appearance. A suspected dime planchet example may have a lighter or more silver-like appearance. However, color alone is not enough. Coins can be artificially toned, plated, cleaned, or chemically altered. Magnet testing can sometimes help with modern coins, but it is not a definitive authentication method for a 1962 cent. The standard copper alloy is not strongly magnetic, and a non-magnetic response does not prove that a coin is a rare error. Measurements and professional examination are much more useful. Collectors also pay attention to strike quality. A well-struck coin can retain sharp lettering and fine details. A weakly struck coin may have softer details. Strike quality is especially important when comparing high-grade examples because condition, strike, color, and surface preservation interact to determine the final grade. A coin's grade is not simply good or bad. Professional grading uses standardized numerical scales. Circulated coins can range from heavily worn grades upward through about uncirculated, while coins showing no circulation can enter the mint state range. The higher the grade, the more important small imperfections become. For example, a coin that looks perfect to the naked eye may show tiny contact marks under magnification. A professional grader can distinguish between different levels of preservation. This is why two coins with exactly the same date and mint mark can have very different values. The 1962 Philadelphia cent has a large mintage, but that does not make every surviving example equally common. The highest quality red examples can be much scarcer than ordinary circulated pieces. PCGS's population and auction information reflects this difference in rarity at the upper grades. The same principle applies to the 1962D. Although more than 1.79 billion were struck, finding a truly exceptional example with outstanding red color, minimal marks, strong strike, and very high certification grade can be much harder than finding an ordinary circulated specimen. That is why a coin's mintage should never be used as the only measurement of rarity. The 1962 D mintage was approximately 1.793 billion coins. The Philadelphia issue had a mintage of approximately 606 million coins. These figures show that millions of examples were produced, but surviving populations at the highest grades are much smaller. The 1962 proof issue had a substantially smaller mintage of approximately 3.218 million. A proof coin is therefore automatically a more specialized collectible than an ordinary circulation strike, although proof does not necessarily mean extremely valuable. The difference between a proof and a circulation strike can sometimes be seen in the surfaces and sharpness. Proof coins are produced using specially prepared dies and planchets, and many have mirror-like fields and frosted design elements. Collectors may describe them as cameo or deep cameo depending on the contrast. The 1962 proof series also includes documented double die varieties. If a collector believes a 1962 proof cent has doubling, professional attribution is worthwhile before assigning a major value. Another important concept is the difference between a die variety and a mint error. A die variety can result from a particular die carrying a distinctive feature, such as a double die or repunched mint mark. A mint error generally results from an abnormal event during preparation or striking. Both can be collectible, but they are classified differently. A coin's value can also depend on provenance. If a spectacular 1962 error was previously sold by a major auction house and has a documented history, that history can strengthen buyer confidence. Certified coins with recognized grading service records are easier to compare against other examples. When searching for a potentially valuable 1962 penny, collectors should photograph both sides under good lighting. A clear photograph should show the entire coin, including the date, mint mark, rim, and edge if an error is suspected. Close-up photographs of unusual areas can help with preliminary identification. However, photographs are not always enough. A scratch may look like doubling in a photograph. A shadow can look like a second mint mark. A stain can make a coin appear to have unusual metal. Professional authentication is especially important for claims involving thousands of dollars. One of the most valuable lessons for collectors is to distinguish asking price from realized price. Online marketplaces often contain extreme listings. Someone might list a common coin for $100,000, $1 million, or even $251 million. Unless somebody actually purchases it at that price, the listing is not evidence that the coin has that market value. A realized auction price is stronger evidence. PCGS's auction records provide examples of what high-grade 1962 cents have actually brought. The 1962 Philadelphia cents documented high result is around $8,813, while the 1962 D has a documented $12,000 result. For this reason, a 1962 penny can be described as potentially valuable, but the exact value depends on the individual coin. A normal circulated 1962 penny may be close to face value. A nice uncirculated example may bring more. A high-grade red example can bring substantially more. A proof or recognized die variety can attract specialized collectors. A dramatic authenticated mint error can command hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on rarity and appearance. An extraordinary condition rarity can reach several $1,000s or more. The key is that 1962 penny alone does not establish a high value. The phrase worth $251 million should therefore be treated carefully. There is no reliable evidence in the professional sources reviewed here that a 1962 Lincoln cent has a confirmed $251 million market valuation. The documented high prices are orders of magnitude lower. If the goal is creating a compelling coin collecting video, the strongest angle is not to claim that every 1962 penny is worth $251 million. Instead, the story can focus on the possibility that an ordinary-looking penny could contain a genuine error or exceptional variety, and that collectors should learn exactly what to look for. The most exciting discovery would be a 1962 cent with a dramatic authenticated error. Imagine finding a coin that weighs approximately 2.5 grams, has a copper-colored Lincoln design, and also reveals traces of the design associated with a Roosevelt Dime. That combination would immediately make the coin worthy of professional examination, because a documented 1962 cent on dime planchette error is known. Another exciting discovery would be a spectacular off-center strike with the full date visible. The date is important because it allows the coin to be attributed. A coin that is dramatically off-center, but has no visible date, can sometimes be harder to identify. A major brokerage would also be an extraordinary find. The unusual incuse design could be immediately visible, making it much more compelling than a minor surface mark. A strong double die can also attract collectors, especially when the doubling is clear and occurs on important lettering or numerals. But collectors should learn to distinguish true double dies from mechanical doubling. Mechanical doubling often appears flat and shelf-like. A genuine double die can show a more rounded secondary design with separation between the original and doubled elements. This distinction can be difficult on small coins, so magnification and reference images are useful. The mint mark should also be inspected carefully on a 1962D. A genuine repunched mint mark can show evidence of an earlier punch impression. Published references identify repunched mint mark varieties among 1962D cents. The 1962 cent also provides an excellent example of why coin collecting is more than simply looking at a date. Collectors study dies, planches, metallurgy, production techniques, minting history, grading, varieties, provenance, and auction records. The weight of 3.11 grams is not merely a number. It can be a diagnostic tool. The 19 mm diameter is not merely a measurement. It can help determine whether the planchette belongs to the correct denomination. The mint mark is not merely a letter. It identifies the production facility. The color is not merely cosmetic. It can affect grading and collector demand. Even the edge can provide evidence. A normal 1962 cent has a plain edge. Unusual edge characteristics may deserve closer examination. The coin's copper alloy also matters. Copper cents can develop natural toning over decades. Brown, and red classifications reflect different stages of surface color preservation. PCGS separately tracks these categories for 1962 cents. The best examples are generally those with original surfaces. Artificially brightened copper can be less desirable than naturally toned copper. Collectors can often recognize unnatural surfaces, but beginners may not. A 1962 penny found in an old collection should therefore be handled carefully. Do not wipe it with a cloth. Do not scrape it. Do not use jewelry cleaner. Do not use vinegar or harsh chemicals. Do not sand the surface. Do not try to remove dark toning because you think a bright coin will automatically be worth more. Preservation is one of the simplest ways to protect potential value. If the coin appears important, store it in an inert holder or submit it for professional evaluation. Avoid soft plastic materials that can interact with metals over long periods. Keep the coin away from moisture and extreme environmental conditions. When determining value, compare the exact coin rather than simply searching 1962 penny. Search by date, mint mark, grade, color, variety, and error type. A 1962 Philadelphia MS-67 Plus Red is not comparable to a circulated 1962D. A 1962 proof is not comparable to a circulation strike. A cent on dime planchette error is not comparable to a normal copper cent. Professional auction records show why exact identification matters. PCGS lists separate records for 1962 and 1962D coins, and the values can differ according to grade and issue. The 1962D has a particularly notable documented auction record of $12,000 in MS-67. This is a useful example for collectors because it demonstrates that a common date can still produce a valuable coin when condition is exceptional. The Philadelphia 1962 cent has a documented auction record of $8,813 for an MS-67 Plus example. These are not theoretical numbers. They are historical auction records reported by professional numismatic sources. That distinction is essential when discussing current market value. Auction records are historical realized prices, while price guides may estimate current retail or market levels. A coin's present value can move depending on collector demand, auction timing, grade population, certification, appeal, and market conditions. The value of an error coin is even harder to predict because rare errors do not appear on the market every day. Two apparently similar errors may sell for very different amounts depending on certification, visual appeal, rarity, and buyer competition. For a $251 million claim to be credible, there would need to be extraordinary evidence, a documented sale at that amount, a reputable auction record, professional certification, and credible reporting from established numismatic sources. The available sources do not provide that evidence for a 1962 Lincoln cent. Therefore, if someone has a 1962 cent and sees an internet headline claiming $251 million, the correct response is not to immediately assume that the coin is worth $251 million. Instead, inspect the coin and determine whether it possesses a specific feature that could justify a premium. The date alone is not enough. The word error alone is not enough. The coin's old age alone is not enough. Even unusual color alone is not enough. The value comes from the combination of authenticity, rarity, condition, demand, and documented market evidence. The 1962 Lincoln cent remains an excellent coin for beginners because it is old enough to be historically interesting, common enough to be found without enormous expense, and specialized enough to teach collectors about errors, varieties, grades, color designations, mint marks, and auction records. If you find a 1962 penny, first identify whether it is Philadelphia or Denver. Next, check its weight. Then inspect its condition. Then examine the date, lettering, mint mark, rim, and reverse for unusual characteristics. If you find something genuinely unusual, do not clean the coin and do not sell it immediately. Photograph it, preserve it, compare it with reputable references, and consider professional authentication. A normal 1962 cent is usually a modest value collectible. A superb uncirculated example can be worth considerably more. A certified top-grade example can reach thousands. A genuine spectacular mint error can also be valuable. A documented 1962 cent on dime planchette error demonstrates just how unusual and collectible a major minting mistake can become. The most realistic way to describe the 1962 penny is therefore this. It is a common historic Lincoln Memorial cent with the potential for significant premiums when exceptional condition, recognized varieties, or genuine mint errors are present. The standard specifications are approximately 3.11 grams in weight and 19 millimeters in diameter. The Philadelphia issue had a mintage of approximately 606,045,000, while the Denver issue had a mintage of approximately 1,793,148,400. The coin's obverse features Abraham Lincoln, with Iron God We Trust above, Liberty to the left, and the date below and to the right of the portrait. AD mint mark identifies Denver. The reverse features the Lincoln Memorial, United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. The designers were Victor David Brenner for the Lincoln portrait and Frank Gasparo for the memorial reverse. The coin's historical importance is enhanced by its place in the early memorial cent era. Collectors can study the 1962 issue as a snapshot of American coinage during the early 1960s. A collector searching through old pennies should remember that spectacular rarity is usually found through a specific feature rather than through the date alone. If the coin has a clear wrong planchet appearance, a dramatic off-center strike, an authentic brokerage, a major double die, an unusual die break, or a recognized repunched mint mark, it deserves additional investigation. The market also rewards quality. A coin with original red color, sharp details, clean surfaces, and a high professional grade can command a premium. PCGS's records for both Philadelphia and Denver demonstrate this principle. In the end, the most valuable thing about a 1962 Lincoln cent may not be a sensational price tag. It may be the discovery process itself. A coin that passed through millions of hands can survive for more than 6 decades and eventually land in a collector's possession. Under magnification, tiny details can reveal information about how the coin was made, what die struck it, whether it was damaged after leaving the mint, and whether it belongs to a recognized variety or era. That is what makes coin collecting fascinating. A small 1-cent piece can carry the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln Memorial, national mottos, a mint identity, a specific production year, and clues about American manufacturing history. In exceptional circumstances, a manufacturing mistake can make that same little coin far more desirable to collectors. So if you have a 1962 penny sitting in a jar, drawer, old collection, or inherited group of coins, do not throw it away simply because it is a common date. Look carefully. Check the mint mark. Check the weight. Check the color. Check the condition. Check the date and lettering for genuine doubling. Examine the reverse. Inspect the edge. Compare the coin with reliable references. And if you see something truly unusual, have it professionally authenticated. The claim of a $251 million value should not be presented as a confirmed market price for an ordinary 1962 cent. The documented professional market evidence available for 1962 Lincoln cents is far lower, with notable high-grade auction records in the thousands of dollars. But that does not make the coin uninteresting. Quite the opposite. The possibility of finding a rare variety, a spectacular error, or an exceptional high-grade survivor is what makes searching old Lincoln cents so exciting. A 1962 penny may be worth 1 cent, a small premium, several dollars, hundreds of dollars, or, in exceptional authenticated circumstances, thousands of dollars. The exact answer depends on what is actually present on the individual coin. The safest collector rule is simple: identify first, authenticate second, value third, and sell last. That approach protects the coin, protects the collector, and helps separate genuine numismatic discoveries from exaggerated internet price claims.